for sure. Okay, so we are talking about the lead out, and it's not a new concept. It's just very, very timely. And Ohio's kids are showing elevated lead levels at more than twice the national rate right now. So there's been this big, I guess, awareness that has come about because of all these reports, which I'm sure started in Michigan a couple years ago, in Flint, Michigan in 2016. And we all know what happened in Flint, Michigan and Benton Harbor and what's still happening. But it is not new. Even though we took the lead out of paint in 1978 and the lead out of unleaded gasoline, lead is still very much a part of our environment. So we need to raise awareness and, put this back on forefront as far as, testing goes. Did I lose people? I think maybe.
I'm still here.
Oh, no, you're still there. Sorry. I'm just trying to, there we go. Trying to figure it all out. So Molina Healthcare and COAD, we came together to develop a PowerPoint for our community, and Kevin McCoy actually was a part of, the abatement process and working in his role down at COAD in Athens. Correct, Kevin? You're in Athens?
Yes.
Okay. And so we are raising awareness and advocating for children to be lead tested, and to also for child care providers to be aware of what they can do in their own environments to protect children from lead. So the very first thing that I want you guys to do is to go ahead and go through this. And you have this PowerPoint. I don't know if you printed things out or not. This is a handout. This is handout 1, and it's a pre-assessment. And if you would just go through this assessment, and then we will go over the answers together, okay? And let me see what you guys know to start with. Okay, everybody have time to go through this? Okay. Okay. Sorry about that. I need to go back. I told you I'm going to be a little bit I need to go backwards. I need to go back. There we go. Okay. Okay. So what did you guys come up with? Shoot, so sorry. What did you guys come up with? The first one, what is lead? And you guys can unmute yourselves. We can have, it could be very interactive. Everybody, I'm sorry, what was that? Right. It's a metal. It occurs naturally in the environment. It's a poison. It's an additive and man-made products. And it's also found in our drinking water. Those are some of the places. Was anybody surprised by that? Where it's found? Okay. So 2, lead paint was banned for residential use in 1978. Is that true or false?
True.
Yes, that is true. However, our housing stock, and I'll let Kevin speak to this a little bit more. We still have a lot of houses that were, my house was built in 1926, and it's, I'm living in it now. So it was built before that, it was renovated, and I think like more than 40% of the housing stock. Lead is an additive in gasoline.
Not anymore.
Really?
Yeah, that is false. They took the lead out of gasoline, so it's unleaded gasoline.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure about diesel fuel and like what additives are in that. But for our regular use for cars, it's unleaded. The lead can be found in water, toys, soil, peeling paint, or all of the above.
I love it.
I love it.
All of it. And that's kind of, we speaks to number one. So number 5, how do children become poisoned by lead?
All of the above.
All of the above. Yep. And this is, again, we're going to talk about all of this. What is lead poisoning?
Yes. It's poison.
Well,
Maybe, and it's E.
Yeah. I mean, I would be, I'm horrible. I like everybody to have success, but it's A, B, and C. And then a lead test is the only way to know if a child has lead poisoning. True or false? True. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're on the very first slide. What is lead? For those of you who went ahead. And Kevin, if you wouldn't mind talking about what lead is.
Sure.
Thank you.
Lead is a basic element. If you remember from school and science class, the elemental chart, lead is under the heavy metals, number 82. Its initials are PB, and it's Latin for plumbum. And that sounds a lot like plumbing, doesn't it? Rome, and we'll get into this as far as the history, but Rome and other ancient cultures used lead for various things, and one of them was for their plumbing. Again, it is a natural element, so one of the problems with it is we cannot destroy it. So no matter what we do, as far as, especially with the housing stock, we end up creating dust, deteriorated paint, and housing debris from renovation and construction creates dust. So one of the things I tell my students is that if you get nothing else from this, just remember that dust is the primary issue with children and with adults as well. Lead does not occur naturally in its elemental form. It's mined. Ancient people, like I was mentioning earlier, has used it. I think one of the, like 6,000 BC is one of the oldest man-made objects out of lead. It has to be mined, but it's easy to get to in some parts of the world. It virtually sits right on top of the ground. It's kind of like coal. Some places it has to be mined, and other places it can be just a little scraping, just several inches down, and they can get it. Lead becomes toxic once refined and made into man-made products. So as it's coming out of the ground, it's really not toxic. It's the form of it at that point is called galena. But once we take it into the smelting operations and the other things that we do with lead, that's when we change its form and it turns into a toxin. So it is recognized by all the major industrialized countries as a neurological toxin. Let's see, lead has been used for thousands of years. I've already mentioned that. The toxicity was recognized in antiquity. You had people like Hippocrates, who is known as, like the father of modern medicine, even though he was around 600 BC or something. The doctors and I believe nurses, they have to take the Hippocratic Oath. That's who it's named after. He was writing and studying it. The Romans, they knew it was an issue. Unfortunately, they didn't they knew it was an issue, is why they would make their slaves deal with it. A lot of historians, or some historians, feel that part of the fall of the Roman Empire was due to lead exposure. Their famous aqueducts that they would store water in the Alps, they would capture water and snow, was made out of wood. The tanks themselves, just like what we have now, similar, but then the water lines were made out of wood, but they were lined with lead. So it's kind of like what happened in Flint, Michigan. So as the water would sit, it would just absorb the lead. So initially the slaves were the ones dealing with it, and then the aristocrats, because they were the ones who had indoor plumbing. Let's see, many countries restricted the use of lead in paint. In 1925, there was a international treaty at a convention. The United States did not take part in that. So European countries, mostly, they haven't had a lead issue for a long time. Part of the reasoning also is they had 2 world wars on their continent, so a lot of the building stocks were obliterated, were leveled. So the United States did not take part.
I think that's a very interesting point that just bringing in that history about World War II and how, there was so much destruction with their housing stocks. I mean, it's also very sad, but that they're a little bit farther ahead, even though they have been in existence longer than the United States. Okay, is that all to add?
Yeah, that's all I have. Yeah.
All right.
Unless somebody else has a question, comment.
Anybody have any questions? Nope. Okay. What I want to show you now is a lead safe toolkit. This actually is geared towards child care center owners, which we consider you center owners, type B, type A. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on this. I'm going to have to do a new share. So just 1 second so that everybody can see it. Can you see it now? Okay. So what we're doing, what we're looking at is a lead safe toolkit for center-based childcare. And there is from the National Center for Healthy Housing. It really does look at where lead is found. Lead is in paint, lead is in drinking water, soil, consumer products. But this is a good website to go to, have videos that you can watch. And there are things that we do to protect children from lead. I'm not sure where you are with your housing, but I know that we're going to talk about that. But, one of the things we do is we maintain our home to minimize lead hazards like chipping, cracking, or peeling paint. And at the end, or probably before I leave tonight, I'm going to be able to go ahead and forward this to you. I will forward this link to you and other links that I have chosen to grab things from. It is a nice resource when you're looking at doing renovations and the importance of how to do renovations. So I just wanted to bring that up there right now. And I'm going to go back to PowerPoint, excuse me.
While you do that, I'm going to throw in a quick blurb for the National
Okay.
Center for Healthy Housing. They are an
Okay.
awesome organization. We're a training provider for them sometimes. But
Oh, I didn't realize. Okay.
yeah, they also have some great information on their sites about asthma triggers for children and other health and safety as far as falls prevention, things like that. So it's a wonderful, and as Mindy was saying, their work with lead has been amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm proud to be associated with them.
Very good. And I think that is something, and that, we can't fight this problem on our own. And it's really important that we start with ourselves, but having resources is the best way to begin. to getting the word out, and also sharing it with our young families and sharing it with grandparents, and just bringing that awareness about again. One of the things I've thought about is what is old is new again. It's just like when we were going through the beginning of the new virus that came along, and here we had to get back to some basics about health and how to stay healthy. So this is the same thing. There's a new generation that we need to keep protecting and advocating for. Thank you, Kevin, for that. And would you mind talking about some more of the history and uses of lead?
Sure.
Thank you.
The two major sources of lead for children in the United States was paint and also leaded gasoline. Lead paint was banned for residential use in the United States in 1978. That's a fact, but one of the issues that's not mentioned is that it was banned for production for homes and child occupied facilities and any kind of product for a child. They could not manufacture it after December 31st, 1977. However, they were allowed to sell it, what they had been producing up until midnight on New Year's Eve of 77. So it's not too uncommon to find houses that has some lead in them that was built in 1978 and 79. However, the law is very specific that a contractor does not have to work lead safe if the house was built in 1978 or newer. Going back to the gasoline, the tetraethyl lead was first added to gasoline in 1921. And believe it or not, it wasn't put in there for performance. It was done to quiet the engine. The motors back then were so loud, and they discovered that tetraethyl lead would quiet the engine. They called it engine knock. The chemicals in the tetraethyl was lethal. The workers, many of them were dying in droves as they were learning how to protect the workers long before OSHA. So it was really an industrial, or the industry itself was governing it. The stuff was so able to absorb into the skin. So workers were, frankly, they were dropping dead sometimes on the production floors. And the ones that weren't dying, the lead, along with the other chemicals, were affecting the brain, causing insanity, basically. They're having to be institutionalized. All the lead and gasoline passed through the tailpipes of the car. So, as I mentioned earlier, lead is a natural element. We can't destroy it. So it would go through the combustion cycle of the engine with all the burning and explosions, the pistons and all of that, but it would still be there. It would shoot out the tailpipe and contaminate, you name it, the roads, driveways, parking lots, yards. So the lead I'm going to back up just a little bit. 1972, legislation was passed to ban lead in paint in 78, but also to ban lead and gasoline by 1990. So those of us who are of that age remember in the 70s and 80s pulling up to the gas pumps, and it wasn't this where you had ultra and all these buttons you had to choose from what kind of gas you wanted. You had either leaded or unleaded. That was your options. So in 90, it was finally phased out. And because of that, research was showing, and they were phasing it out before 1990. The reason they gave it so long was because of the cars that had been produced that was in need of this. So that's why they allowed it to stay in production longer. But research showed that between 1976 and 1994, blood concentration in children dropped from 13.7 micrograms per deciliter to 3.2. So it dropped over 10 micrograms. And Case Western Reserve University in the Cleveland area, they're the ones that did some research on it. And it was determined that it was a direct result of lead being removed from gasoline. That's all I have on them, Mindy.
Okay, okay, that's fine. I'm so sorry. I was, trying to keep up with a question I had, but so basically, I think it was interesting too, even though what year was it taken out of the gasoline?
1990.
1990. So, I remember as a little girl, and I probably shouldn't say this, but, I remember smelling it and loving that smell and inhaling the vapors and everything. And, working around, I was born in 1971. So, that was leaded paint, removal. And but it's just interesting how all of these environmental hazards come up, and how they truly are toxic. It's young bodies and young minds. Okay, thank you, Kevin. Let me see, we're going to go to the next one. Oops. Okay, so this one is, we have a video with this one, and I'm going to hit the link, and as soon as we get it up, I'm going to share it again. Okay. And we're going to start watching it. Can everybody see the video?
Yeah, I can.
Okay.
I can't hear it though.
You can't hear it at all?
No.
Okay. Oh boy. Okay, let me see here. Molly stopped, so I can't hear. Okay. Kevin, any thoughts on that?
No. On my screen, I don't see anything where it could be muted or unmuted.
Okay, so I apologize for this. Let me see here. Where's it? Can you hear that?
It's not.
Okay, let me
Still
see here.
paused.
Okay, let me try this again. Can you guys hear anything? It's still paused.
No.
Nothing. Oh my gosh. Okay.
It seems like they're talking, but you can't hear them.
Thank you. That we're trying to figure that out. I lost my tech person. She already left. Let's see here. Oh boy. This stinks. I feel like putting a reaction in. Let me see. Not going to spend too much time, but they are good. And
I just saw unmute.
I know. It was unmuted again. Did everybody turn up their computers? I don't know if that would work or not. About that. Anything?
No.
No.
Oh boy.
It's in a different language too.
I know.
Well, the
So we can't-
captions are in Spanish, but
Yeah.
if you could hear them, it would be in English.
Right, right. I was thinking we could just read it, but you have to know Spanish.
That would be nice. Just give me 1 second here, and I apologize for this. This is just this is where I need my tech person. Let's see if this helps. And if it doesn't help, then I'm just gonna have to, is that my microphone? Did I go up? Let me see. Let me go to video. No, I'm not. Okay. Let's try it one more time, and then if not, can anybody hear that?
No.
No. Okay. Unfortunately, that's just the way it goes. Let me hit my chat. I can't hear or see anything. Okay. Okay. I'm just going to go back to the PowerPoint, and we're just going to unfortunately have to skip the videos because I don't think the gal that was helping Molly is on anymore. But let me see if I can.
Might be able to email them to us maybe to watch later.
Yeah. It's only 17 minutes, believe it or not. There's some really good information in there. Yeah, she's not even on the meeting anymore. There's some really great information about doing home renovations. And, you know, Kevin, I wasn't there for the creation of this original PowerPoint, but I'm assuming they chose this PowerPoint because the fact that we really look at, because as small business owners living in our home, and we're in a field that there are really small revenue margins, that we're going to do some of the work ourselves. Would you agree, Kevin?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a great video, and it is for DIYers. I'm assuming your home, your daycares are in your homes.
Mine
so-
is.
Okay. And I can walk us through some of that because I believe a lot of these PowerPoints can touch on some of the, that's why it leads into modules as far as how to protect yourself, how to clean up. When we do a class with contractors, we don't show a contractor how to change out a window, for example. They have those skills. We show them how to do it in a lead safe manner, how to prevent the spread of lead dust and debris, and then most importantly, how to clean up after themselves. They don't leave a hazard. We really haven't gotten into it yet, but the lead dust is invisible. I usually, to folks who are new to this information, I usually try to compare it to asbestos. Asbestos is a fiber, but a lot of it is invisible as well. And that's something a lot of people can relate to, or they know a little more about it, even if it's from those mesothelioma commercials from the lawyers. So I think might be able to muddle through, Mindy.
Okay. I wish I could show, yeah, I watched it all today. It's only 17 minutes, but they do show the importance of cleaning up and, the importance of when you are doing home reno. And it brought me back to when my son was just a little guy, maybe 5-6 months. And we were doing some renovation and I had to tape everything off, and I would only, I would put things in like a bucket. And when I would go out to get a drink of water or something, I was very, very careful. I had everything. I was able to have everything taped off with plastic and everything. But so far,
containment is
yes, it's very important.
It is. It's extremely important. I put it up there with the cleaning part, because if you have adequate containment, not even the best of the best, but even if it's just adequate, it'll really minimize what you have to clean up. The video, you can find it on YouTube. It's called Don't Spread the Lead, I think, or Get the Lead Out. And it's they focus also on the children's rooms a lot.
Yeah, I could even share that on my closed daycare page to parents.
Yes.
Yeah, that'd be great.
That's a really great idea. It's a really great idea. And, the other part about that is, I will send that link again on a links page where I grabbed a lot of information. So that'll just be sent as an attachment. And then everybody can check it out. But Molly is back, so I'm asking her if she could give me a hand. And, we can see what we can do, because it's not a lot, even if we watched it in its entirety. It's not a long video, but it is worthwhile to watch. Okay, now we're here to the legislative and legal aspects. And again, Kevin, if you wouldn't mind speaking on this, that would be terrific. Thank you.
Sure, you see on the screen there, that's the bureaucratic alphabet soup of who all's involved at a large scale. There's other entities that's not on here, like Medicaid, for example, but at a large scale, this is now those initials, the RLBPHR, that stands for the Residential Lead-Based Paint Hazard Reduction Act of 1992. So that was, well after 1978, but there was still a problem, still a huge problem. There was I guess a culmination, if you will, of events in the late 80s when President Bush Sr. Was president. The White House was going under renovation, and their dog, Millie, was lead poisoned. The law went into effect in 92, so the workers who were renovating the White House they weren't breaking any laws, but they, who wasn't tested? The humans. Yeah. So also HUD, who you see the third bullet point down, HUD was having trouble finding in some areas. They are the largest landlord in the nation. They're having problems finding insurance companies that would cover some of their properties. Lead was one of the issues, but there was others. There was health and safety issues going on. So there was these events that were happening right around the same time, and it kind of got Congress and others interested in kind of like the Flint, Michigan thing. It brought it back up. So they passed this act, the Residential Lead-Based Paint Hazard Reduction Act of 1992. So it told the legislation told the EPA they were tasked with developing educational resources for training individuals who would be involved in lead hazard reduction activities. I have some, if we get the video going, you'll see, I think they used this, or they showed this in the video. This is for homeowners, just advice, and it is from the EPA. There's another one. This is for contractors. A little bit too fast. It's called Renovate Right. This is another one. It's from the EPA. I believe the video that we're trying to show was sponsored or paid for by the EPA. So they do have some information out there. The EPA was told to create and then to enforce what's known as the RRP rule, which we'll talk about here in just I think a couple slides. But moving on, HUD, as I mentioned, they were told to establish guidelines for lead-safe work within their properties. And just as a coincidence, because of what I do, these are the guidelines. Within that, and those are the state laws. The state of Ohio has adopted the HUD guidelines.
Looks like my rule book.
It is. It's basically it's like a code book, but it has, each chapter has its own trade, if you will. Chapter 5 is for risk assessors. Chapter 12 is for abatement contractors. So HUD did, as you can see, that HUD developed those. They also have some grant programs. So even if it's property that they don't own, but HUD money or government money, period, is going into privately owned property, then that kicks in what's called the lead safe housing rule. So like weatherization, if you're familiar with some of those programs, That's U.S. Department of Energy money, but it's still federal money. There's a program that HUD funds called CHIP, and it's not CHIP like with ODH or what you might be familiar with. It stands for Community Housing Impact Preservation. They had to make it as complicated as they could, I guess. But what that program does, they can go into a privately owned home. It is income based, but they can make the house safe for the people to continue to live there. They have a priority list like weatherization does, seniors, families with young children, handicap. They have priorities, and again, it's income based. But they make the house safe. They basically bring it up to code. Some people they get over $40,000 worth of work done in their house, new roof, wiring, electrical wiring, plumbing. So while the contractors are working in these houses doing this work, they have to work lead safe. They have to by law, and there's a third party that'll come in, and I'll talk a little bit about it later, that will check their work, make sure they clean, because they have a tendency, some contractors, of leaving an environmental human health hazard. Let's see, the next bullet point is OSHA. Oh, our friends at OSHA. They were told to establish regulations. They did actually early on for general industry, but in '92 they were told to develop lead safe practices for construction and renovation in particular. The CDC, they're responsible, of course, for the health and such, but they set the level for what is a lead poisoned child. Basically, they don't call it that. It's just through their research they suggest. So, for example, I'm going to throw some numbers at you with some units of measure. So, like 5 micrograms per deciliter is a lead poisoned child in Ohio, whereas CDC refers to it as a level of concern. They leave it up to the individual states, and I believe every state and territory has adopted that number. So how small is 5 micrograms? So if you remember from school, a micro means 1/1,000,000th. So in this case, it's 1/1,000,000th of a gram. So if you take a penny that weighs 2 grams and you cut it into 2 million pieces, and you separate and you pull out 5, that's all it takes. So 5 micrograms per deciliter is a lead poisoned child. And CDC, again, they're through their guidance at the federal level, they kind of set that. And then ODH, that's the Ohio Department of Health. They control licensures for lead professionals in Ohio, for the trainings as well. When I do a training, I could have a monitor from the Ohio Department of Health come in and watch the training, make sure I'm following the rules and that I'm giving proper information. They also will do the investigation for lead poison a child. How do we know if a child's lead poison? Well, it's through blood work. In your pre-assessment, I think it was one of the questions. It's the only way to find out if there's any lead in the body is through blood work. Is every child required to have blood testing done? No, unfortunately. Medicaid has a requirement up to 6 years of age. But Medicaid's requirement is at 12 months and 24 months, they have to have a blood lead level test. And the Ohio Department of Health, on their website, they have what they call high-risk zip codes. Children, no matter what their income, if they live in these high-risk zip codes, then doctors are supposed to do blood work at 12 months and 24 months. There's no record of them having blood work, let's say at age 5, then they're still supposed to have it up until 72 months. The Head Start, I believe, has they have a rule also. Children have to have their blood levels tested. And there's some school districts in the state, when a child's going into kindergarten, Cleveland, the city of Cleveland, they require that as part of their like shot records and all that to take in. They also have to show, and it's a simple capillary test. That's that one where they just prick their fingers or their heels on their feet. But if it comes back, if the results come back as 5 micrograms or greater, then they have to actually take a draw out of their veins, and that can be pretty rough for a little kid. You know, their arms. I know adults don't. I know I don't. You know, their arms are pretty small, so it can be pretty trying. But the Ohio Department of Health, if a child's blood level comes back at 5 micrograms or greater, by law, that doctor has to send that information to ODH, and they will send out. It's kind of like a CSI unit. They have to find out what is causing this poisoning with this child. So they have right to enter. They don't come into the place like they're raiding it. You know, they'll call ahead and they'll set up an appointment, and they'll talk to the parents. And then when they come in, they'll inspect the house. They're looking for lead hazards.
I know our area was really high with lead, and I contracted with Head Start for like 8 years, and I actually drove kids to get that test because our area was so high with the lead.
Yeah, some areas, some health departments are very proactive, and they actually will send their mobile labs to daycares and Head Starts to do it right on site, right in the parking lot almost. That's all I have, Mindy, for the slide.
Okay. Yeah. So he brought up some great points, and, you know, I even went to the Head Start site and I pulled some information and everything, because they are a lead agency in any of our communities where they, you know, as far as training goes, as far as, you know, getting the information out there. So I pulled from them, and Ohio Department of Health, obviously, I'm going to be sharing the blood lead testing requirements that came there in a link. But for right now, I'm going to show everybody, since we're here, and we're going to go back, because I think videos are online. We can be online. But I'm going to share this document, and this is probably it's the newest document. This came out can everybody see it? It says Ready, Set, Soar, Ohio. So this document came out in last year, February 2020. And there's a couple, I'm going to read this so I can see it. There's a couple different pages that I want you to see, but Billy Osborne, she is up at Starting Point in Cleveland, and one of the is a very powerful statement. She said it's unacceptable that in 2020 we can continue to have children living and learning in environments where they are exposed to lead paint hazards, undermining their health, education, and foundation for all future lifelong success inside the places that were quite literally built to keep them safe and support their growth. And she's talking about referring to childcare centers, but also our homes. And, we really need to go back to this again. It's not okay that our elevated blood levels are more than twice the national rate. And what's going on? And there shouldn't be any lead in children. But if we look at the lead poisoning's impact on young children, it's you can read it along with me, but lead poisoning can affect nearly every system in the body. It is especially harmful to children in their first 5 years because it's disrupting rapid brain development and growth that their body and their brain is undergoing. And there is no safe level of lead in a body. And, Kevin was referring to the micrograms per deciliter of blood. But, damages the brain and nervous system, slowed growth and development, speech and hearing, learning disabilities. If you look, you could even look at the state of Ohio where there's high lead exposure. And I'm not sure where everybody's from. I'm here in Tuscarawas County, but this is our region. We're 31 counties? And
I'm from Ohio.
Yeah. So here we are, but if you look at
Athens
in the
county, I guess.
Athens, yeah, that's fine. No, that's fine. So down in Athens, there's moderate. But if you look at Meigs County, the surrounding counties, it's very high. It's very high. And it's concerning. Some of these other statistics, 3.7 million Ohio households contain lead-based paint. I know my house does. And I think, I've really watched for chipping, and I've painted over surfaces. But, it's, again, 1926. Are there surfaces that have not been renovated? Absolutely.
I know the
If you
house
look-
I live in is old, but it was already done.
So it was renovated already.
Mhm.
I would like to
He
point out
says all new drywall.
Oh,
I'd like
That's-
to point out something that can be misleading almost. We keep saying lead-based paint, but it could be in any coatings.
right.
It could be in stains, shellacs, varnishes, so hardwood floors, stained older stairs, built-ins, any component that has some kind of a coating on it has the potential. Depending on the age of the home, like Mindy was saying, it has a greater potential the older it is.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Kevin. If you look at this graph that we have on, you're looking at Cuyahoga County, and unfortunately, this document really focused on Cuyahoga County because it is the highest. But Kevin and I were talking about this the other day, and we're looking at 5.7, whereas Cuyahoga, is what, 4 times that amount, 5 times that amount. Kevin, can you explain why Appalachia is showing so low as far as
Well,
0 to 5?
Cuyahoga County, yeah, Cuyahoga County in particular, they test more. They had a mayor in the early 70s that was very proactive. In fact, he even testified in Congress to the point that they put a HUD kind of regional research building in the Cleveland area. So Cleveland tests more kids. Like I was saying, the Cleveland school board, and I think all the schools in Cuyahoga County, for a kid to come in kindergarten to enroll, they have to have a bloodlet level test. Whereas that's not required, as far as I know, in any other school district. Some areas, like Athens County, it depends on who's in charge, what their focus is, what their funding is. They may not have the funding. I know Athens County, I shouldn't say I know, but I believe Athens County does not have a lead risk assessor on
Yes.
staff. Whereas Cuyahoga County probably has a dozen. Franklin County, the Franklin County Health Department, they have a whole division.
We need one
dedicated
because
to
we
it.
have a lot of old houses and
Yeah, and I know they're busy with other things that is very impactful health-wise, public health-wise, but
yeah.
lead is the dirty secret. Even many of our health professionals allow it to fly under their radar.
Yes. It's kind of amazing. It's a 52-page document, but it's really a lot of reading because there are so many graphs and everything. Really, Groundwork Ohio is the advocacy group for early childhood educators in the state of Ohio. And if you are looking, to be current, you can subscribe to their newsletters and they will really keep you in the know. But, we're all advocates for children's health and we want children to grow and thrive. And we don't want them to be delayed in any way, shape, or form. And we want them to be ready for their next steps, whatever that might be, whether it's, turning 2, turning 3, going to a preschool, going into a school system. We want to do the best that we can to help all children, especially, just all children, because I believe that, we have a heart for that. That's why we do what we do. We want them all to be healthy and successful. And when you hear these devastating stories about children that are delayed because of lead paint, and again, we've had this awareness for eons. And we really did some proactive steps 50 years ago, but it's still happening. And we need to get the word out that, that we can be safe and we can do renovations and we can help children to be safe. Oh, I had a participant jump on here. I need to check it out. Not sure. Okay. Anyway, at this point, it is 7:30. Let's take a little bit of a break. I know we've only gotten through a few screens, but and I need to go back to that page so I know when to stop it. Evan, how would you feel about if we just went ahead and watched the whole thing?
That's
Too
fine.
much?
No, that's fine.
It's only 17 minutes, so that way we'll just be able to get it done, and then we can just work through it.
I can keep
Okay?
messing with it. Yeah.
Yeah. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do it.
Hi, I'm Noreen, and I'm an enthusiastic do-it-yourselfer.
Wait a second. Can everybody hear it?
Mhm.
I'm about to show
Everybody
you how
see
you
it?
can carry out a home renovation project in
Okay.
an older home in ways that will protect you and your family from lead poisoning.
And I'm Patrick, another do-it-yourselfer. Noreen and I want to talk about lead safety because lead poisoning is a serious illness that can cause permanent harm, especially to children.
But before we get started, please note, this video is primarily geared toward do-it-yourselfers like us. It is not intended for landlords, property managers, or paid contractors. Those folks have to follow specific rules issued by the Environmental Protection Agency. If you're hiring a contractor to do some or all of the work on a house built before 1978, make sure that the firm and key workers are certified under EPA's Renovation, Repair, and Painting Program, or RRP, and that all workers are trained in lead safety. There's more information about RRP at the end of this program.
So this video is for do-it-yourselfers who are doing repairs and small renovations?
Yep. Anything bigger, like tearing down a wall or replacing a window, and you should probably take a training course in lead safety. But for now, let's get started with our project. Patrick and I are about to repaint the trim in this bedroom, but we want to do it safely. Because our house was built in 1941, there's a good chance it has lead paint. If we do any work without proper precautions, we could put ourselves and everyone around us at risk for lead poisoning. It's a very serious illness.
You're right. It says here that if your home was built before 1978, it might have been painted with lead paint. If it was built before 1960, it probably does contain lead paint, especially on the doors, windows, trim, stairways, railings, and porches.
If the old lead paint is in good condition and you won't be disturbing it, it shouldn't be a problem. But if you'll be sanding, scraping, or otherwise disturbing painted surfaces, as we will, you'll almost certainly create dust and debris that contain lead.
Maybe I'll just watch.
No, you'll be helping. And this is serious business. People can breathe in or swallow the dust and become lead poisoned. Small children might also swallow paint chips and become lead poisoned. Lead poisoning is especially dangerous to babies and young children whose brains and bodies are still developing. It can cause serious problems with learning, behavior, and health. Lead is also dangerous to unborn babies, and once the damage is done, it's permanent. Lead can also cause serious health problems in adults, including you if you're doing the work yourself.
Okay, message received.
But you can work safely around lead paint if you follow some simple precautions, and that's what we're here for, to explain the steps to lead safety.
So how do we get started?
As we said earlier, lead paint might be present in any home built before 1978. If that's the case, you have a few options. You might decide to have your home tested for lead paint. A certified lead inspector or lead inspector risk assessor should do the testing. Although you can have just the work area tested, it's usually better to have the entire home inspected and tested. Then you will know how to handle future painting and renovation projects.
Can we do the testing ourselves?
Yes, as long as we use a test kit approved by the EPA. These kits are available at many hardware and home improvement stores. Just follow the directions on the test kit carefully and test all surfaces that will be disturbed. But if testing isn't possible or practical, use this safety principle. If the home was built before 1978, assume that lead paint is present and follow the steps to work lead safe.
Sounds like a plan. We'll assume our house has lead paint. What's the next step?
First, we'll set up the work area safely. It's really important to keep all children and pregnant women out of the work area because lead dust is especially dangerous to them. But it's best to keep everyone who isn't helping out of the work area.
Can I stay?
You're not a child, and you're certainly not pregnant, and you are helping, so yes, you can stay. We'll keep our pets away from the area too because they can get poisoned. They can also track lead dust all over our home. We'll put up a sign and a barrier such as yellow tape to remind people to stay away from the work area. If you're working outside near another home, ask your neighbors to close their windows and doors. Explain that doing so will help protect them from lead poisoning.
Okay, everybody's out. Let's get started.
Not so fast. We have to protect the furniture and anything else in the room. Time to put you to work. In a room like this, we'll move furniture, rugs, clothing, toys, food, and other movable items away from the work area. Since we'll be painting the windows, we'll take down the curtains. For a larger project, such as painting a whole room, you can move everything out of the room or move everything to the center of the room. You need a protected work area large enough for you, your tools, and any surfaces you're working on.
What about things that can't be moved, like, say, built-ins or kitchen countertops?
For anything that can't be moved, cover it with heavy plastic sheeting called 6mm polyethylene plastic sheeting. Seal the sheeting securely with duct tape. Then cover the floors at least 6 feet in all directions from where you'll be working. Now let's put all our tools and supplies on the plastic sheeting so we don't have to walk away from the work area with dust on our shoes to get what we need.
Things like the 6mm sheeting and waste bags, duct tape, spray bottles, wet sanding blocks. Anything else?
We also need a vacuum with a HEPA filter. A HEPA filter traps even very tiny particles of dust and keeps the dust from getting in the air.
Check.
Now we need to seal off the work area to prevent dust from spreading into clean areas of our home. We've got to cover the floor, counters, air vents, built-ins, carpeting, and anything we can't remove. We'll use 6mm sheeting and secure all the plastic with duct tape. We'll need to throw away the covering after the job to avoid spreading lead dust to the next job.
Besides being safer, plastic sheeting is cheaper than drop cloths.
Next, we'll shut down forced air heating and ventilation systems and close all windows and doors to keep dust from spreading.
But what if you're working outside?
First, remind neighbors to close their windows and doors. If there are any items that can't be moved away from the work area, cover them with 6mm plastic sheeting and seal with duct tape. Cover the ground with plastic sheeting too and secure the sheeting. If the work area is near a sidewalk, street, or property boundary, set up a vertical barrier of plastic sheeting over a strong framework to keep dust and debris inside. And avoid working on windy days to prevent dust and debris from leaving the work area. If you need to use a ladder outside, cut small slits in the plastic so the ladder doesn't slip. Now we're ready for step 3, protecting ourselves from lead, dust, and debris.
Okay, we've gathered what we're going to need. Safety glasses,
Disposable gloves,
a disposable painter's hat,
disposable shoe covers,
and disposable coveralls. If the job were going to be really dusty, I would need to wear a respirator labeled N100 to avoid breathing in any lead dust.
no eating, drinking, or smoking in the work area. You don't want lead dust getting into your body.
And no putting on cosmetics, not even lip balm. Same reason.
Always wash your hands and face carefully each time you leave the work area, before you eat or drink, and at the end of each workday.
Are we ready to work now?
Not quite. There are two things you need to remember to control the spread of lead dust. First, create as little dust as possible. Second, if you do create dust, keep it from spreading. To create as little dust as possible, use a spray bottle to lightly mist areas before you sand, scrape, drill, or cut. But of course, don't mist near live electrical outlets. Repeat the misting frequently to keep the surface constantly damp, but not soaked. Score paint with a utility knife before separating components. Pry and pull apart components instead of pounding or hammering. Remember, never spray water around electrical outlets, switches, or equipment.
Well, I'm misting as I go, but I'm still creating some dust.
Sure, that often happens, but you want to keep dust from spreading outside the work area. Clean up dust and debris immediately using a damp rag or tack cloth. Then put the debris in a waste bag. Don't leave dust or debris lying around. Also, keep the work area closed off from the rest of the house, and that will keep dust from spreading.
But I might need to leave this room at some point, to get a drink or go to the bathroom.
Just make sure you clean up to remove lead dust from your clothes and body. Before you step off the plastic sheeting, remove and discard your disposable gear, such as shoe covers and coveralls. If you aren't wearing protective gear, wipe your shoes carefully and use a vacuum with a HEPA filter to remove dust from your clothes. And don't forget to wash your hands and face thoroughly.
Okay, anything else I need to know about creating or spreading lead dust?
Yes, there are certain activities you need to avoid completely.
Such as?
Here are some unsafe practices you should never use to remove lead paint. Dry scraping and dry sanding, power sanding or grinding without a HEPA dust collection system to trap tiny dust particles, using a high temperature heat gun or an open flame torch, uncontained power washing, uncontained abrasive blasting, and never use a broom to clean up. All of these methods can spread dangerous lead dust. Finally, never use chemical paint strippers that contain methylene chloride, because that chemical causes cancer.
Whew, looks like we're just about finished.
Oh, not quite so fast. At the end of every workday and at the end of the whole job, we need to clean up carefully. Because lead dust sticks to surfaces, cleaning up lead dust takes a bit of extra effort. But if you've prepared the work area, as we did, lead-safe cleanup can be as easy as a careful cleanup after any other job. Remember, by cleaning up lead-safe, you'll be protecting everyone around you from lead poisoning. Let's get started. First, we need to pick up any big pieces of debris. We'll put them in a heavy-duty plastic bag and seal the bag with duct tape. Next, we'll fold the plastic sheeting with the dirty side inward and place it in another heavy-duty bag. As before, we'll seal the bag with duct tape. We're going to store all bagged materials in a safe, secure location away from our family and neighbors. Then, depending on the amount of dust created, we may use a HEPA vacuum. It's important to vacuum slowly and carefully to be sure to clean up any remaining dust. Next, we'll need to wash walls, floors, and other hard surfaces in the work area. We'll wash from the top down and scrub hard. For large projects, we would wash all surfaces, whether we worked on them or not. We'll need 2 buckets, one with water and detergent and another with clean rinse water.
I'll bet we'll have to rinse well and change the rinse water often.
Right. When we finish washing, we'll put all of the dirty rags and mop heads in a heavy-duty plastic bag and seal the bag with duct tape. We may need to double bag the waste to keep the bags from breaking. Of course, the waste should be stored in a safe location away from our family and neighbors until we remove it from our home at the end of the project. Finally, we'll clean thoroughly with the HEPA vacuum one more time.
I think I have to clean myself up now.
Yes, we both do. We don't want to spread any lead dust to the rest of our home, our car, or our neighborhood. Remember, before we leave the work area, we'll remove all of our protective gear and put it in a heavy-duty plastic bag and seal the bag with duct tape. As soon as we leave the work area, we'll wash our hands and faces. When we finish working for the day, we need to remove our work clothes and wash them separately from the rest of our laundry. Then we'll shower and wash our hair as soon as possible.
We're all cleaned up. Now that we've finished the whole project, what do we do with the waste?
You'll remember, Patrick, that before we started this project, I checked with our state and local public health and environmental protection agencies to find out how to dispose of the waste, including any wastewater. Of course, we have to handle all the bagged waste carefully to avoid tearing the plastic bags and spreading lead dust around. Now we need to get the waste out of our home. Since we're using our car, we'll put the waste in the trunk, not the passenger area, and HEPA vacuum the trunk after we've disposed of the waste.
I've checked our work to see if there are any paint chips, dust, or debris remaining, and there aren't any. So we're finished?
Well, if you had found anything, you would need to clean that area again. Let's take a moment to remember why we're doing all this work. Lead poisoning is a really serious problem. If you're working on a child's room, be especially careful to work safely and clean up thoroughly. Your child's future could depend on it. Now, let's review quickly the steps to working lead safe. Consider whether the work involves lead paint. Set up the work area safely to protect your family, your neighbors, and yourself. Use protective gear and lead-safe work habits. Control the spread of lead dust. Leave the work area clean. Check your work.
For more information about working lead safe, you can get a copy of Lead Paint Safety, a field guide for painting, home maintenance, and renovation work. Or you can take a lead safe work practices training course approved by the EPA. If you have any questions, check with your state's Department of Public Health.
All right.
Well, there you have it. How to work lead safe in an older home. It's not all that difficult, and it is very important. By taking a few simple precautions, you can do a great, safe job of fixing up a home.
By working lead safe, you'll be helping your family, yourself, and your community.
By the way, if you're still considering hiring someone to work on your home, be sure that the firm and key workers have been certified and that all workers have been trained in lead-safe work under EPA's Renovation, Repair, and Painting Rule, or RRP.
Hiring a lead-safe contractor will protect your family's health and will maintain the safety of your home. And consider this, a contractor who has made the effort to become certified has shown professional responsibility and is following the law. The RRP practices are similar to the ones described in this video for do-it-yourselfers, but have more detailed requirements. For example, the contractor must give you a copy of a booklet entitled Renovate Right before starting such work. Look for the RRP logo to make sure your contractor is certified. For more information about the rule, see www.epa.gov/lead.
Thanks for your time.
And good luck on your project.
Okay. I'm going to go back to the video. Was it informative? Did you learn something different? What did you think about the prep and the cleanup?
It's a lot, but it's good to know.
Yeah, it is good to know. Yeah.
Yeah, the EPA actually, they were talking about 6 mil plastic and such. All they really suggest is a heavy grade plastic.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I wouldn't, and this probably goes without saying, but I would not duct tape plastic to paint or to that hardwood floor. Painter's tape is very effective, and you're not peeling paint or leaving that adhesive glue stuff behind. You got to get up with a razor blade.
Okay. Yeah.
When we bought my house, well, when we were thinking about buying this house, before we ever went into contract, we had an inspector just, do a full home inspection, and he included testing for lead. So that was like super helpful. And I always tell people you should pay for an inspector.
What did he test with this? One of these?
Honestly, like I have no idea.
Okay.
But because I wasn't, my husband was here, but I was not. So.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Full blown paint inspection would be, by definition, it has to be every painted surface.
Mhm.
Yeah. So Usually these kits, they come in handy for a homeowner or for a contractor. It's only disturbing one component. Say they're taking out a couple of windows so they can test the window. They
Yeah.
use this to test every wall, ceiling, possibly floor, and then exterior walls. That could get costly.
Yeah.
Wow. So Kevin, how much does an inspection typically cost?
Well, it depends on what you want. Usually, if it's an actual lead inspector risk assessor, it'd be a couple $100, maybe $300, but they would take an actual paint chip sample and send to a lab to have the results read there. And in the video, you saw the lady that was wiping the windowsill. That's looking for lead dust. So when I do that, I'm a licensed risk assessor. So when I go to test like that, I have a contract with the lab. They send me those dust wipes. They come in a little pack, like you get at the barbecue joint, but the lab guarantees that there is no lead in that thing. So I'll use it. I stick it in a vial, and then I send it to the lab, and they'll read it. And they're looking again for dust levels. And an environmental human health hazard on the floor, lead dust on the floor, is at 10 micrograms per square foot. That's all it takes to harm a child. The windowsills are 100.
Okay. What do you normally find? When you're looking, I was taking a note. So it's 10 micrograms, and we're only looking for in children, it's only
No, that's the dust. That's the dust.
okay.
How much lead dust is on the floor? If it's 10 micrograms per square foot or greater, then it is a hazard.
And how often do you find that?
Quite a bit. Quite a bit. More times than you would imagine. And we only test on floors and windowsills. We're not doing dust wipes on walls or ceilings. The largest area in any house, horizontal surface, is a floor. And I think we're about to get into actually this, so I can kind of do the segue into this this slide here, talking about the lead effects and such. Lead is one of the most studied toxic substances. There's a lot of research that's gone into it. The groups that are most at risk are fetuses, infants, and children under the age of 6. And that's who we test, as I've mentioned already, at 72 months. It's not that we don't care about 7-year-olds or older. It's just a child is most developing as a fetus. And then, like, if you think about a child day one, an infant, the day it's born, and then how much it has developed by its first birthday. The central nervous system typically is fully developed in a human by age 6. So we don't want to cause damage on the way while it's being developed. For the fetus, if a fetus is taking in lead from mom, then it's going to cause more substantial damage, because now you're getting into birth defects, hearing issues, speech, even growth. But once the child's born, if it had no lead exposure until after it was born, then it'll mostly affect the brain. There's other, depending on how much they take in, it could affect other parts of the nervous system, but primarily the brain. And up to age 6, because how a child plays also. I used my grandson, who lived with me for a couple of years, as a case study. When he was 2, 3, and 4 years old, he was on the floor all the time, Thomas the Trains, and all that. And then when he got to be about age 4.5 to 5, he wasn't on the floor as much. He wanted to, those foam darts everywhere. He's up shooting, sword fighting. He's wanting to wrestle. So the way they play and interact with each other changes also. But we only test the floors and the windowsills because again, the floors is where a child spends most of their time, and that is where you'll find the largest accumulation of lead dust. At very low levels, lead's neurological effects have a major impact on children's developing brains. I guess I've already mentioned this. It really gets into the all of the initials that we come to understand or learn in the 80s, the learning disabilities, LDHDs, all of that. And those things exist, but what they found in the 80s, doing some research throughout the 70s, was that sometimes it was the environment that caused those issues. It wasn't genetics necessarily. You know, mom and dad didn't have those issues. And it wasn't really researched as much, so we really don't know for sure. But what they did know when they went in and checked the house, the environment that the child was in, they saw that they were in a situation that just wasn't good for them. So the IQ, again, reading, learning disabilities, hyperactivity. Lead goes where calcium goes, primarily. It's a whole other class to describe it, but lead, again, it's a natural element, so the body confuses it for other things, the things that the body needs: calcium, iron, potassium. But for a child, it's primarily the calcium. And as we know, calcium is good for teeth and bones. So when the lead is ingested by a child, it's usually a straight shot to the blood. And it'll course through the blood, which means it's going into the brain, the central nervous system. And if the child's not getting a well enough diet, then again, it'll go where the lead or the calcium is supposed to be, the frontal lobe, where we develop reasoning, impulse control, things like that. Lead can get in there and really affect that. Adults also have the potential for lead exposure, often from contact with leaded dust, either from deteriorated paint or from work. My old boss, he still works with us sometimes. He's semi-retired, G.H. Renovich. He's my Yoda. He's been doing lead longer than Ohio's had a lead law. He had to go to Baltimore, Maryland for his training back in the 80s. But when weatherization mandated lead safe work, there was a lot of whining from those workers about how they had to clean now and such. And they were telling him that their shop vacs and their push brooms was cleaning the houses well enough. So he's a licensed risk assessor. So he went with their permission to some job sites and did that dust wipe sampling on the floors of their box trucks, where they're in and out of all day. And then he did sampling up by the gas pedal and brake pedal. And every one of those samples came back contaminated. So it was one of those teachable moments. You just ask a simple question, you claim, and the question is, you claim that you're cleaning well enough. How is the lead dust getting from the house to your truck? He did not test their personal vehicles. He didn't go back to the shop. So it was an impactful moment for some of them. Some of them had small children at home. I myself, in 13 years, I've trained 2 guys who have lead poison their own kids inadvertently. The one brought the dust home from work. That was what was determined by the Ohio Department of Health investigation. And the other guy was renovating his own house while they lived in it. But they had the skills to fix their own house, so they were able to take the lead abatement course, and then they were able to fix their the hazards. So yeah, it's easily transported, if you will. We as the humans, we kind of become mobile, toxic mobile units. Let's see, lead containing dust is the most common form of exposure. As I said, I think one of the first things I asked you to do was, if one of the things I really want you to take from this is that dust is the problem. There's been very few, if any, I've never read personally an incident where a child has been diagnosed with lead poisoning because they're eating paint chips. It's the dust. you guys have kids, that you're watching. Maybe you've had children of your own. They crawl across the floor, fingers in the mouths. They grab something, it goes to the mouth. I was just reading recently a meme that said the fastest land mammal on earth is a toddler who was just asked, "What did you put in your mouth?"
Oh my gosh, that's
Everything, as you
funny.
guys know, yeah, everything goes. So they're most susceptible, and it's invisible dust. Well, humans and animals can be exposed. There has been a couple of cases where the dog or a cat had it in their fur from outside the exposure. OSHA has policies in place that apply to lead exposure in the workplace. That's EPA. They mentioned in that video the RRP rule. Now that rule is for any house. We're not talking income. Income has nothing to do with it. Here in Athens, we have a hometown hero, Joe Burrows, Heisman Trophy winner, national champion, and all that. He plays for the Cincinnati Bengals. He's a multi-millionaire in Cincinnati. If he bought a house there and had renovation done where they were going to disturb the paint, that contractor is supposed to work lead safe, just like they were doing in that video. He would be that contract. It doesn't matter. He has no kids in the house. It does not matter. The law was very specific. So he would have to get this pamphlet, and then they would work appropriately. Let's see, other sources of lead poisoning could include dust brought home on clothes. Kind of already mentioned that. There are certain hobbies. Some families, it's kind of tradition, especially hunters or gun enthusiasts. They make they cast their own bullets, and that's made out of lead. We strongly recommend, it's not illegal or anything, but we strongly recommend that that's done outside or in a well-ventilated area, wearing gloves, and wash your hands. Like the old Sesame Street song, Mom was right. Wash your hands, wash your hands. Stained glass. There's other points of exposure in some houses, but again, the primary cause is dust.
Kevin, thank you. I need to go back to that one little guy that you were talking about, that that I forget who brought it in, but their little boy had lead poisoning. What were his numbers?
I don't know. The dad didn't tell me. I only know about it because I met the dad. And he found out his grandmother gave him the house.
Okay.
And they literally gave it to him. And she gave him a lot of problems with what she gave him. But they found out the children were lead poisoned because they got them enrolled in Head Start.
Okay.
So they had to have the blood test done. That's how they even knew.
Okay. So we're going to move to, I'm going to show everything. We're going to work through things a little bit quickly so we can get to how we can offset it. I sent this to you. This is Know the Facts. And it was sent in a packet earlier. So this is something you can, everything I'm sharing, these are things that you can share with your parents. And you can use for family engagement pieces and family resources. We want to help, again, children. And we know that lead can cause learning and behavior problems, slow down the growth and development, damage hearing and speech, make it hard to pay attention, to learn. So we need to be very, very cautious ourselves and do early testing. So in the chat box, what is one thing that you could do to help your parents, to encourage them to test lead for their children, to get a lead test for their children? What do you think that could be? Like
The health department.
Go to the health department. Yes, definitely. This is Bold Beginning. If you could just type it in the chat box, some ideas on how you can encourage parents to get their children tested. So here's the Ohio Department of Health. If you go to Bold Beginning, which is a website, I'm going to have to go back. It's a website for child care providers. It will automatically send you to the Ohio Department of Health and looking at childhood lead poisoning. There is information for parents, homeowners, renters, for pregnant women, healthcare providers, data and stats. Go back to this. Okay. Okay, I'm still, everybody's putting some thoughts in there. We're going to look at what are the common symptoms if a child is exposed. And Kevin, would you like to speak on this?
Yeah,
Okay.
unfortunately, another thing
Yes.
that's unfortunate is that many of the symptoms, because the child takes in relatively a small amount at a time, but it does accumulate. Now it's in the blood for about 4 to 6 weeks. And then it goes to the soft tissues, typically the kidneys, and then it's flushed out there. Now what's not flushed out ends up in the bones. So remember, lead goes where calcium goes with the child. So the problem is it's chronic if they never really get out of that environment. If there's lead dust that they're always crawling in. So it builds and builds and builds. So once it gets to a certain point, we talked about the behavior, learning problems, but as far as physical, kind of right on the spot, they could have headaches, abdominal pains, stomach aches or cramps, constipation, diarrhea, hearing problems, fussiness, crankiness. And, as you guys know, children, especially the younger they are, they don't communicate that well. Usually it's body language when we know that a child's not feeling well. It's easily misinterpreted. The unfortunate situation in Flint, Michigan ended up being causing some fortunate situations for the rest of the country. It opened the eyes of some doctors. Their source was through water, but it was the same issue. Once it got into the system, it was ingested, it wreaked havoc on some of these kids.
Yeah. And that's really important. I didn't read the way that you said that is lead goes where calcium goes. I never, in anything that I read, and I read a lot, but it wasn't that plain. And it just really makes you, stop and think, how we can.
What's not flushed out through the kidneys then goes to the teeth and bones. There was a doctor in Pittsburgh at the University of Pittsburgh in the late 60s who, with research money, was buying baby teeth. He was kind of almost like a bizarre tooth fairy. The parents would sign the children up for this research, and he would pay them. One of the things that he would need from them was baby teeth. So, and he would examine to see how much lead was in their teeth. And then as they grew, it was not lifelong, but he followed them through adolescence and their teenage years. And the vast majority of them that had a high lead level in their teeth did not graduate high school, or they didn't graduate on time. They had legal issues. They had been diagnosed with learning disabilities, hyperactivity, just that list I just kind of read to you. That research really opened up a lot of people's eyes. It really opened up more research. The Cincinnati's Children's Hospital, they're one of the leading organizations right now. They've got some amazing research going down there.
And there's just so much out there. I mean, you just start looking and looking and looking, and it's just such a high priority. But it's just, again, I'm just becoming more aware of it as well. And, I think about my own children who are now adults, but, living in an older house, even though it was renovated, it makes you think. But, what I was getting at is one of the things that we could do very easily is this Constance? Yeah, awesome. Thank you. So we could put on the enrollment form a very simple question, and that question could be, have you had your children tested for lead?
If you ask a risk assessor to come and look at your house, that'll be his or her first question. Why do you want it? And then if usually it's the one when I'm asked to do it, it's usually because they have a nephew or a niece who has been lead poisoned, and my house is similar in age, and I have little kids. So my second question is always, have you had your children's blood lead levels tested? Because that's a good, we need a baseline. We need to know where they're at before I go in and do any testing.
Absolutely. This is another, so if parents say no, and so how many children under the age of 6 are you serving? Right?
I have 5 under the age of 6.
5 under the age of 6. How many, Denise, Jerica, Constance, Haley? Like, what are we looking at here?
Yeah, 3.
3? I mean, that's a high 6.
I work in the center. We have about 15.
About 15. Wow. So, this is what we're looking for. And, again, if you're in a Head Start center, they're going to be doing those early developmental screenings. If, I don't know what center, Denise, that you're working in, but if it's a STAR 3, we should be implementing the ASQ, and doctors are doing the ASQ. But a lot of times what happens is, we don't get that information from the doctors. So, we kind of need to do our own advocacy work, but this is definitely, something to look at and, to pass out to parents again. And, if we go down to the bottom, it says, how can we prevent lead poisoning? We need, and I put that in there, but now that Kevin said that, make sure your child avoids peeling paint. I mean, children do like the paint to peel it off, but it doesn't often blood poisoning doesn't happen because they're ingesting it and eating peeling paint. It comes from that dust. Wash your hands, wash your toys often, remove your shoes before entering the home because it's in the soil. If you work in construction or other industries where you're being exposed to potential sources of lead, take your clothes off and serve healthy meals. And the children who eat a healthy diet absorb less lead. And so you want iron-rich foods, calcium-rich foods, vitamin C. Anything else you want to add, Kevin?
Well, you hit the highlights there.
Okay.
It's a busy world. When I leave the office here in Athens, there's a Little Caesars right at the bottom of our hill, and when I leave here at 4:30, there's usually a line of cars, and there's a little head sticking up in the back seat because they're heading off to soccer fields or something. So I know if another thing that you can suggest on the Ohio Department of Health's website, they have high-risk zip codes.
Yeah, I'm going to show that right now. We must,
Okay.
So this is what this came off of the Ohio Department of Health. Can everybody see it?
I can.
Okay, so this, I have to always minimize, but this is a great checklist, and it is the blood lead testing requirement that you can incorporate into any of your intake forms and we know we all have them, the enrollment forms, the health forms, everything. Is your child on Medicaid? Yes. Have you had a blood test? Do they live in a high risk zip code? Does your child live in a regularly visit a home that was built before 1950? Does your child live in a in or regularly visit a home or child care facility or school before 1978 that has deteriorated paint. I had a child care center that was built in 1936. So we had to have it assessed, and it had been renovated, thankfully. Does the child live in a home that was built before 78 with recent or planned renovation or remodeling? Does the child have a sibling or playmate that has or did not have lead poisoning? Does the child frequently come in contact with an adult who has a hobby or works with paint? Does the child live near an active or former lead smelter, battery recycling plant, or other industry known to generate airborne dust? And this is, and I believe this was sent to you as well. This has all of the area codes. Can you guys see that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I know. I looked at mine, and mine isn't in there, which kind of surprises me. Can you guys recognize yours when you're looking at it?
I don't even see Ohio.
Yeah, this would be, I don't know where, Constance, where are you?
In Ohio, Zanesville,
You're in Zanesville. What county is that?
Muskingum.
Muskingum. Okay, so we'd have to find Muskingum here. I'm not even, there it is. So 43701, 43702, 43777. So they're saying that those are their high risk zip codes, and you should be testing.
Yeah.
What makes them a high risk zip code is
Oh, man,
the
mine
age.
is too. Bummer.
Well, what makes
Yeah.
them high risk is the age of the housing stock and the median income. So
Okay.
it's based on, the older the house is, the more TLC it needs. And can the family afford it is what it comes down to in a nutshell. So that's what makes it a high risk zip code. And that form that Mindy was showing above, that's a basic form that doctors are supposed to follow. And as it says there, if the parents answer yes to any one of those 8 questions, or if they just live in a high risk zip code, then they're supposed to have their blood levels tested before age 6.
Okay. Thank you, Kevin. We're going to move on. There's another checklist that is here. And I'm going to go to the next one. And this is actually in the lead kits that you're going to be receiving from us. This is one of them, but this is also another poisoning checklist that would be very helpful. If you don't want to give them something like that, you could give them this to your families, and also look at it if you would like. Okay. You guys see that? Okay.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay,
Can
I'm
see it.
sorry. I just want to make sure that we're all looking at the same page. Okay. So let me go back. Share this for some reason. Okay. Here we are. Okay, so this is what to expect if a child has been exposed.
Well, we mentioned the only way to test or to find out if they've been exposed is through a blood lead level test. The Ohio Healthy Homes and Lead Poisoning Prevention Program, which is a division within the Ohio Department of Health. Again, they use the CDC's guidance at 5 micrograms. And as I mentioned earlier, if your child does test at 5 or greater, the Ohio Department of Health by law must intercede to find out what's causing it. Now, from 5 to 9, they will call the parents, call the house. They only have one office in Ohio, ODH, so popping in to talk to parents isn't always easy. So from 5 micrograms to 9 micrograms per deciliter, it's usually a phone call, and they can work with the family on improving the diet, cleaning the house, Again, it's invisible dust, so the house may appear clean, but the toxins are invisible. The Ohio Department of Health has a list that virtually every health department in the state has a HEPA-vac loaner program. So a homeowner can go in or a renter, they don't have to be a homeowner, but somebody can go in and they'll loan the HEPA-vac to the family for like a week or so, I think, because they want the family to use it to do a deep clean, not just carpets, but also use that thing on hard floors, furniture. It looks similar to a vacuum cleaner, and it has the crevice tools, all of the things, the upholstery attachments. They want the drapes to be clean, but they'll work with the family. And then they'll have the child tested again in about 8 weeks. And if the blood level's coming down, then they know what they're doing is working. Now, if a child is at 10 first test or greater, then the Ohio Department of Health will come to the house. That's when like I said earlier, it's kind of like a CSI crew coming in. They have to find out what's causing it. And then the combination of educating the parents and then possibly working in the house. And now there's been children who've been lead poisoned. The one that comes to mind was in a house built in 2008. So it wasn't the house. It wasn't the primary care or the child care rather. It was what I think mom or dad one recycled or worked at a battery plant. Batteries are the number one use of lead in the United States today.
Oh.
Like those AAA batteries, why do they weigh so much? Car batteries, and they all have a recycling. You know, if you need to buy a new battery for your car, they want the core. They want you to bring the old one back. And there is a place in Ohio up by Fremont, Northwest Ohio, that recycles batteries, and they that trade is pretty dangerous. So one of the parents was bringing stuff home with them. So it was an unfortunate situation, but it was an easy fix. You must clean yourself a lot better before you come through the door.
Yes. And, thank you, Kevin. And just to say, to piggyback on what you were saying, any child with an elevated blood level of at least 5 micrograms per deciliter, or any developmental concerns should always be referred to early intervention, and anybody can make that a referral to a child. It doesn't just have to be an expert or a specialist. So, that's always something to always consider in our field as well. We're not going to look at that one. We're just going to kind of, we've talked a lot about lead in the environment, and I'm going to share this. This is for child care providers, and just to consider where lead is found in your home. And Kevin has touched on everything. In our water, in possible toys, on the floor, windowsills. So, again, to pull this out and to look at it and, give it to parents and share with parents to get their children lead tested for lead and get their blood levels checked. Okay, I'm just moving along here, just making sure. We've already watched the video. So these are steps that to prevent increased lead exposure. We need to really get back to washing hands. And I'm hoping during these past 18 months that people are really slowing down and doing it properly. Hand washing is the number one preventative measure against all communicable disease and exposure to elements, neurotoxins that could possibly be infesting. So we need to wash children's hands often, regularly clean, use cold tap water when making formula, and we're going to be giving you guys get a bottle, water bottle that will filter lead out. For participating in this training, you want to avoid certain products, remove work clothes when entering the house, look out for peeling paint, be careful during renovations, seek professional help screening your home for lead hazards. And if Evan's a lead assessor, you might want them to come in and check for lead dust, and they will help that. And it would the lead-based inspection and an abatement contractor. Kevin, can you speak about that? Because I think that is a really daunting idea of having somebody come in your home and assess for lead. What happens once you find lead in somebody else's home? In someone's home?
Could be bad things, depending on what it is. Now, if lead-based paint is considered a hazard if it's deteriorating or if it's on a friction impact surface. The old wood windows, the wood sash windows, when they go up and down, they rub. Stairs,
Oh, I have old
floors.
windows.
I'm sorry?
I have older windows. Could it be
Yeah,
on
so
there?
Yeah, so if they're painted, there could be an issue. Friction impact surfaces would create
Okay.
a hazard.
Thank you.
And then the dust wipe sampling. And as I mentioned earlier, if I do a dust wipe sample on a floor and the lab sends it back saying that there is 10 micrograms or greater per square foot, then that's considered a hazard. By law, if it is a hazard, that can only be treated or fixed by an abatement contractor. So that's where the costs tend to go up at that point. Before we get to that point, that's why I always ask, what are the children's blood lead levels?
So always start with the
because-
children.
Yeah, because if their blood lead levels are already over 5, then ODH is going to take over. There's nothing I can do. The Ohio Department of Health will take over. And if through their investigation, they deem that the house is the problem, then only a lead abatement contractor can fix those problems. And the lead abatement contractor is basically a housing rehab person. They're changing out windows, doors, hanging drywall. Kind of going back, if there is intact paint with lead in it, that does not make it a hazard. Okay, but it does have to be watched and maintained by the homeowner.
Very important. Safety and disposal. We watched that video. I want to get to. I'm kind of going through these quickly because we talked about a lot, but I do want to pull in some things. You guys all recognize this, right?
Oh, yes. My favorite book for the last 20 years.
It is. I know. I hate to bring these things up, but it's all research based. But if you look at the very first one for space and furnishings, space is poorly maintained. I mean, it really makes you think about your environment and why we have these and why we're using them. And now for myself, I don't think I'm ever going to be able to go through an Itters, the Fickers, and Eckers, Sakers, whatever, without thinking about lead now. You know, like it was not a part of my my thinking. And I mean, seriously, I'm like, my daughter is 18. I'm like, wow, what do you think about getting you tested for lead? And I mean, she seems to be typically developing and everything, but it scares me now. And you know, I guess it's not something that was a part of our my history. My child, you know, my oldest is 24, my youngest is 18, and you know, we didn't have these conversations. And we even had Head Start in our program. So, are you guys aware of the? So, I hate to move on. You guys have any questions about that? You know, why we implement these things, these tools? It's a little bit different. And you know, we have very young parents out there that need a lot of help. We have grandparents raising children. And, you know, we really need to, again, raise that awareness. And what Kevin said, what is your child's blood level? Well, if they're not getting tested, we don't know. We need to encourage parents to get them tested. This is keeping up with the recalls, and you could go in, and I'm just going to show you this quickly. You could go in, you hit OK, You want to go to recalls. You could put in any hazard. We were playing with this today. We put lead in. We put it in child arts and crafts. We applied it. The first thing that came up was American Girl class. You guys see that?
There it is.
Yes.
There. So we put in lead hazard category, child's arts and crafts, and here you go. This is American Girl. And I'm assuming that they were made in a foreign country. Perhaps,
Yes.
which is a lot of our children's toys are. So, again, I am patriotic. It's just one more reason to, I locally, I live in the USA. Think about staying away from the antique toys as well. Any thoughts on that?
Mini blinds are notorious, believe it or not. They are huge dust reservoirs. If they're made overseas, lead is baked into them. Makeup, some food that's it's Asian or Middle Eastern, like some eye makeup, it's Surma. It's heavy with lead.
Yes. I mean, really, I'm sorry to, I'm scary.
Once you say made in the USA on them, you're good.
Mm-hmm. So it's not even about being patriotic, it's about being health-wise.
Yes.
When we're talking about made in the USA, we have more regulations and, health regulations with the EPA and the FDA. So, that's important to consider. But again, we want to help children develop healthy habits from the start. Don't skip meals. Wash children's hands. Limit the fats and sugars. Offer a variety of fruits and vegetables. Milk, whole milk. I know that we're supposed to be using 1% milk now, and not whole milk, but just try to increase the calcium, the iron-rich foods, the vitamin C. Washing their hands properly, taking time to wash their hands, not rushing children, showing them how to do it properly is going to keep them safe and healthy all the way around. There's nothing worse than watching children walk out of the bathroom with their hands dripping wet and they touch a wall or they touch somebody else because water spreads, helps spread bacteria and viruses and other things. Just breezing along. So these are sources. We're not have time to get into